I thought that my tight left lumbar spine and QL region was due to being stuck in a left AIC pattern. And if you don't know what that is, that's a pattern of postural asymmetry and muscle activation that's described by the Postural Restoration Institute, in which they claim that the left lumbar spine and pelvis gets pushed forward in space relative to the right. Now you might be wondering, why do I have an upright base in this video? Well, it's because this actually might have more to do with my left QL and lumbar spine tightness than this left AIC pattern. Let me explain. So we already said that a left AIC pattern is characterized by a forward left pelvis and an increased arch in the lumbar spine on the left when compared to the right. Now, PRI contends that everyone, and I mean everyone, has this pattern. I've heard this at their courses over and over again, as well as from the most popular online PRI trainers who will not be named. So with this being said, the assumption that the left pelvis is more forward and the left lumbar spine is more arched then leads to the justification for left hamstring activities that tuck the pelvis and round the spine. And then this also includes right arm reaching activities to help to rotate this spine over towards the left, which makes it easier to reduce the arch in the back on the left when compared to the right. Now, if this were the case, and in many cases it is, these are certainly some good movements. However, this is not always the right move, especially if someone is more forward on the right in the pelvis and arched in the lumbar spine when compared to the left. This is much more common than you think. Most of the people that I end up working with are actually in this pattern more than the traditional left AIC. All right, so as I bend down and touch my toes, you're gonna see that my left side appears higher than my right side. And I used to think that the cause of this was increased activation in the left QL and paraspinals because of a forward left pelvis and an arched lumbar spine on the left that's characteristic of a left AIC pattern. But over time, through trial and error, and through working with individuals who weren't getting results with PRI activities, I came to realize that actually it was almost the exact opposite. Now, let me explain how the opposite pattern of a left AIC could cause left QL and lumbar spine tightness. So many of us have experienced tight hamstrings before, and many times the reason we have tight hamstrings is because our pelvis is in an anterior pelvic tilt like this. And when that happens, the hamstrings which attach here at the bottom of the pelvis are already pre-stretched. So when we go to touch the toes, we feel even more stretch in the hamstrings because the pelvis is already taking up that slack before we even initiate the movement. So if you want to try this, go ahead and do an anterior pelvic tilt, arch your back as hard as you can, and then bend down maintaining that arch, and you'll feel a hell of a stretch in your hamstrings. Now, you probably wouldn't want to maintain this all day long because it would be pretty uncomfortable. Now, we can imagine that the same thing is actually happening here with the left QL and left paraspinals, albeit in a slightly different way. The left QL and paraspinal muscles are here on the left side of the spine and go between this rib cage and pelvis. Now, they produce the motions of extension, arching the back, as well as turning away from that side. Now, if these muscles were shortened, that's probably what they would do. But in the case of them being lengthened, what they're doing is resisting the opposite motions. So what I mean by this is that when we turn the spine to the left, they resist that rotation. And when we round the spine by doing a posterior pelvic tilt or rounding the low back, they also resist that motion. So if we are rotated to the left and then tucked under on this left side and rounded through the spine compared to the right, these left QL and paraspinal muscles are always engaged because they're resisting that rotation. Now, if we come back to my example of the upright bass, which I played obsessively for years and went to school for, what you're constantly doing is orienting your body to the left towards the instrument and then bringing the instrument back like this. And so what this does, again, is it turns us to the left, which is left rotation. And then if we're letting that instrument come back to us, and we're keeping the weight back in the heels, that's gonna round that side of the back a little bit more. Again, the two positions that we just described would cause the left QL and left paraspinals to have to resist and hold on and be active. Now, if you're watching this, you might be wondering, okay, but how do I know if these muscles are short and stiff or weak and long? Well, first of all, if you've been doing the left AIC type activities and you don't get relief in that left QL or paraspinal region, then that's probably an indication that this might be going on. Now, there's a couple of other things you can look for as well, and those are that right rotation will be relieving, as well as that you'll be limited in flexion here on the right side, and when you lay completely flat on your back, you have a little bit more space between the ground and the right side of your back, and you'll have a little bit more pressure on the back of your left side of your pelvis when compared to your right. Now, in addition to those findings, if you're someone who's a carpenter, an electrician, a surgeon, a basketball player, or a baseball player or other rotational athlete that uses this kind of left rotation type motion, or using the right hand to come down and produce force across the body, then you actually might be someone who fits into this pattern rather than the traditional left AIC pattern. So now that we know what's going on from this biomechanical perspective, let's talk about what we need to do to get changes that actually stick. If you're getting value from this video so far, and you want to learn about a simple approach that you can use to systematically identify what your postural imbalances are so that you can improve mobility, then go ahead and join me for this live event next Wednesday. This is going to be a free webinar where I'm going to break down my approach to simplifying the application of posture for improved mobility. This is going to be a really fun presentation, and all you have to do to register is go to the link below and follow a series of prompts. You'll immediately get an email, you can add it to your Google Calendar, get registered for it, and I hope to see you there, because if you stick around for that presentation, there's going to be special bonuses that I'm going to offer if you're there, as well as special access to my brand new program where I'm going to be diving into this simple framework in depth so you can finally move and feel the way you want, so you can get back to the activities you love pain-free. Okay, so to get started, if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, well, can't I just take the left AIC activities and then flip them to be the opposite? Well, in many cases, that is a good starting point, right? There's nothing wrong with doing some of these three-dimensional type activities that are static to just get some awareness of what these positions are. But this is just a starting point. And although this can be a bridge from not knowing what's going on to then developing awareness, we got to think about how humans really move, right? These static positions where we're just breathing and feeling a position are not necessarily going to scale up to moving dynamically across space in time. And especially not in activities where we have to repetitively use our bodies in these ways to manipulate external load. So once we've developed this awareness of where the body is in space, then we have to get up against gravity. And when we get up against gravity, we want to think long-term about this in terms of what got us there in the first place. So there's actually nothing wrong with orienting to the left and using the right hand to produce force down and across. That's totally fine. But it's when we start to utilize more end range, leaning really into that left side, and then dipping down really far with this right side, because of factors like fatigue or the need to produce more force, or because of some sort of pain, that we can then get into trouble. So we not only need to restore this opposing position and get onto that right leg and restore the right rotation, but we also have to improve resilience in both positions, right? If every time we go to produce force or we get tired, we then default over to this position, then it's not going to work. We're not going to get long-lasting changes. And if we only focus on going over here, then every time we go back in this direction, we're not going to be very good there either. So once we get up against gravity and we start restoring that ability to stand over on that right leg with right rotation, we then have to start progressively overloading the system in those positions. Now, I know we're kind of getting into the weeds here, and I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of exercises in today's video. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper, go down to that link in the description, register for the free live event that we're going to be doing, simplifying the applications of posture and breathing for improved mobility. I hope to see you there. You're going to get special bonuses as well as special access to my brand new program. So if you're looking for a more simple and scalable model, go ahead, register. And until next time, thanks a lot for watching. Peace.